So you got a flat tire? That's alright, it's a basic part of life. I'm here to help you. I'm JR, this is Epically Simple Basics, and here's how to change a tire. Now you're going to want to get the stuff that you're going to need to actually take the tire off, jack the car up, so on and so forth. So you're going to need a jack, you're going to need something to take the lug nuts off with, and you're going to need a spare tire, obviously. There's a lot of different types of jacks that you can get for this. Most passenger cars are going to come with the scissor style jack already included with them from the factory. You can also get a hydraulic bottle jack, or like I'm using, a hydraulic floor jack. Now it's not as big as your mechanics hydraulic floor jacks that they have in the shop, but it's plenty to get the job done for taking a flat tire off and putting a spare tire on. There's also different types of tools to take your lug nuts off with. Again, your car should come stock with a tool specifically for the specific size of lug nuts that are on your vehicle. If you don't have that, of course you can always get like what I'm using, which is a 4-way lug wrench. Has 4 different sizes on it, so it's almost like one size fits all. You can also use a socket and breaker bar. Of course, you can't forget about your spare tire. Now, most cars, again, are going to come stock with a spare tire. It's going to be the donut style, and it's always important before something happens to make sure you check the air pressure in the donut, because it's a really bad day when you have a flat tire, you put the donut on, let the jack down to find out the donut's flat too. Now, some cars will also come with a full size spare. Even if your car comes with a donut, it's still a good idea to look into investing into a full-size spare. They're just so much better and more convenient than the donut style. Now, you don't necessarily have to have these extra tools that I'm about to mention, but it's always a good idea to look into them, especially some of them for safety concerns. You might want to look at getting some jack stands, maybe a metal pipe to give you some more leverage when taking the lug nuts off, some wheel chocks, again, same safety issue as with the jack stands, to chock the wheels so the car don't roll, and maybe even some WD-40, because if you end up like I did with my car, the lug nuts were basically rusted on. I had to give it a liberal amount of lubricating oil to get the lug nuts off. First thing you're going to want to start off with is try to do this on a level surface if at all possible. I definitely understand that it's not always possible. That's why I'm doing it in my driveway, which is on a slope and it's on gravel, because when you're stuck on the side of the road, you're not always going to have that nice flat smooth surface that comes with an empty parking lot. Now, before you even find your lift point and put the jack under your car, you're going to want to loosen the lug nuts. It's going to make it so much easier once the car is off the ground to take the lug nuts off if they're already loose. When you're loosening your lug nuts, remember righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, which basically means turning it clockwise is going to tighten it, counterclockwise is going to loosen it. There are some common size lug nuts. You've got 3/4, which is the same thing as a 19mm. You've got 7/8, the same thing as a 22mm. 11/16 is the same as a 17mm. And 13/16 is the same as a 21mm. Coincidentally enough, those are exactly the sizes that are on a 4-way lug wrench. Now you got to lift the car up in order to get lug nuts the rest of the way off, and so you can get the tire off. Now you want to find your lift points with one of those stock scissor style jacks that comes made specifically to fit onto the body lip of most passenger cars. Lucky for me, I'm not using one of those, because as you can tell, the body lip on mine is all rusted off and I wouldn't have had anywhere to put it. So when you're using one of these, you definitely want to get it as close to the tire as possible, but still in a point of strength for the body of the car. Personally, I'm using the Craftsman hydraulic floor jack that comes with the case, which is going to come in handy when we get the lugs off. This is just a much better jack to use. It's so much faster and so much easier than using one of those little stock scissor style jacks. If you're interested in trying to get a jack like mine, I've got a link for it in the description there. Go check it out. If you like it, buy it. If you don't, you're already going to be on Amazon anyway. Go ahead and go shop it. Now, like I said, with my lift point being rusted off, I had to find another lift point, but I got the car jacked up. Once you get it off the ground, you only need it off the ground just enough to where you can wiggle the tire. It might still have a little friction on the ground, but that's okay. Once it's up, if you have jack stands, go ahead and place your jack stands. That's a safety thing. But this is also another safety concern here. If you don't have jack stands like me and you're also doing this on a slope instead of on level ground like me, be extremely cautious, because a slope plus no jack stand equals danger. The car can fall on you. I have had it happen. It hurts. It doesn't feel good. Be extremely cautious. Do not put your legs under the car while it's jacked up on a slope without jack stand. Now once you get the car up in the air, give it just a very gentle shake. If the car falls, I'd rather it fall with the tire still on it as opposed to falling with the tire not on it, which is going to cause a lot more damage. Now the lug nuts are loose, the car is jacked up, it's time to take the lug nuts the rest of the way off. This is where I really like the 4-way, because you can use it as a speed wrench. Just like when you were loosening the lug nuts originally, still remember, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Now once you've got the lug nuts taken off, make sure you put them in a place that is easy for you to remember and makes them easy to find. In my case, I can just use the case for my hydraulic jack. Now if you're ready to take the tire off, sometimes they can be stuck into place, so just give it a gentle shake. You might have to whack it a couple of times, but once it's loose enough that you can wiggle it off of the actual lugs, just simply lift up and pull out. Once you get the tire off of the car, I just throw mine down on the ground and use it as a seat. Now just roll your spare tire into place, line up the holes on the spare tire's rim with the lug, gently lift up and slide it onto the lug. You might want to use your foot on the bottom to keep it somewhat squared up onto the car itself when you get ready to put the lugs back on. You want to start 2 lugs on opposite sides of the tire. Start them and run them all the way up by hand. You can tighten those gently until you get the tire good and snug. Then you want to start the other 3 or 2 or depending on how many lugs your vehicle has. Start the rest of the lugs by hand. And then you can use your tool to run them up. Again, in my case, with the 4-way lug wrench, I can use it as a speed wrench. Once you get the lugs all ran up and basically just hand tightened to where they're just snug and the spare tire is snug and there's no wiggle, you can remove your jack stands if you're using them, remove the chocks if you're using them, and simply let the car back down. Now when you go to tighten the lugs, again, remember what we talked about before, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, but here is an additional tip. You always want to go in a star pattern. And what that means is you start from one point, move to the opposite point of the tire, move back to the original point on either side of it, and continue in a star pattern like that. Now the pattern itself is going to be different depending on how many lugs you have on the car. Some have 4, most have 5, some have 6, some have 8. So your star pattern is going to be different, but it's always going back and forth between opposite sides of the tire. Also, as you're tightening, you're most likely not going to be using a standard torque wrench, which tells you exactly how much pressure and how tight the lugs are when you tighten them down. So a good rule of thumb that I've always been taught and I've always used is when you're tightening them down, to prevent over tightening them, only tighten them enough until when you're tight enough that you're moving the car, it's tight enough. Now you're done. The car's let down, the lugs are all tight, the spare's on. Pick up your tools, throw them in the trunk or the back seat or wherever you want to throw them at, and go on your way. Now there's one extra step in this. It's not really an extra step, it's probably the most important step. Remember to fix your flat tire and put it back on. Now I'm sure there's going to be some people that didn't listen to me when I said put the lug nuts in a place where they're easy to find. So now you're all like, oh, I lost my lug nuts, what am I going to do? Well, there's a simple solution. If you lose your lug nuts, or if you're changing the tire in the rain and they get washed away, simply take one lug nut from each of the other 3 tires and use those until you can get a chance to get more lug nuts to put on the rest of the car. So there you go, now you know how to put a spare tire on. Now you don't have to be stuck on the side of the road waiting for roadside assistance or for some stranger to pass by and offer to change it for you, because now you know how to do it yourself. A couple of final thoughts here, one main final thought. Try to remember to put the spare tire on the back of the car. For one, you don't want it on the front because that's where your stability is, that's where you steer. This is especially true on front wheel drive cars, because not only is that your stabilizing point, your steering, but that's also where your power is going. So that donut, if you got the donut on the front, you can really burn it up if you get on just a little bit too hard. So it's a good idea to put the spare tire on the back. So what happens if you get a flat in the front? Well, simple. You just take the good tire off the back, put the spare on the back. Now take the good tire, put it in the front, and put your flat tire in your trunk until you can get it fixed. Thank you for watching and learning with me. If you like my video, hit like and subscribe and let me know what I'm doing good so I can keep it up. If you didn't like it, dislike and subscribe and let me know what I did bad so I'll know to fix it and avoid it in future videos. Also want to thank Pointer Auto for letting me get some of the footage that I used in this video, so big shout out for them. If you're in the market for a car, come give us a visit in Southern Kentucky. Check them out. They've got some pretty good deals. Once again, thanks for watching. I'm JR. This is Epically Simple Basics. Keep learning and have fun.